Here to talk to us about simplifying user interaction, please welcome David Ramirez.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. As he said, my name is David Ramirez. I'm the Senior Service Manager for macOS and Jamf. And I'm super excited to be here. It's my second time at JNUC, but my first time presenting. So I know what you might be thinking. No, I did not have a balloon of helium before this. This is my real voice. I'm just really excited to be here. I wanted to give a huge shout out also to the PDX Mac admins community. Those guys are awesome. They helped me go through all this beforehand, helped me test, so yeah, it's been great. So we're going to talk about simplifying user interaction. I'm going to share what the tool is, why does it exist, what can it do, how does it work, most importantly, where to get it, and how to set it up yourself. So I'm going to go back to the beginning in 2014. I was working in Portland, Oregon, and I was a desktop supporter. And I hadn't really done anything in scripting. I just played with script, and I spent a lot of time trying to read the scripts that our Jamf admin was writing and trying to figure out what they do. About 6 months in, there was a demand from our senior leadership to create some tool that could standardize the dialogues that the users see, allow them to delay installations, and our Jamf admin had his plate completely full. He was like, I don't got time for this right now. So foolishly, I volunteered. And I volunteered with a colleague, and we were working together on it, and then he found another opportunity, and he's got a great place to work now. But I had lost my sensei, because to me, he was my scripting graybeard. I was so excited to be working with him, and then I had to become really strong in the ways of Google Foo. So what is the Jamf Interaction Toolkit? Internally, we call it UEX, so I might refer to it as that. The Jamf Interaction Toolkit is a versatile set of scripts that standardize the way you interact with users. So you can see one example here for macOS Mojave. It might be a little small. I have bigger ones here. But it basically allows you to tell the user what's going to happen, allows you to postpone the installation till later, or them to choose a postponement. You can actually control how many they have, and it does a lot more than that. So let's show you a few examples of what it can do. So it supports Apple software updates. It tells the user if they need to quit iTunes, Safari, or restart the computer, if they need to have power plugged in. This is the example of power plugging in or installing at logout. So for example, if the user wants to install it at lunch or at the end of the day, they just simply log out of their computer and it will start to install. And then also you can do it for large application installations like the Adobe Creative applications, where you can quit lots of applications beforehand. And we all know that it takes a long time to do those. So it's built in to also block those applications from being open during the course of the installation. So it's very cool like that. So why does it exist? Well, at every JNUC, the YouTube videos I've watched of JNUC, the JNUC I was at last year, and even this year, it's all about creating a custom branded, trusted experience for your users, and more so, your work colleagues. Creating something that's easy to understand, that's helpful, and works well with Jamf. That was the most important for me. So it also has built-in delay function, which there's actually 3 functions of built-in delay, and I'll go into those a little bit later. So let's watch a demo. In the example, we have a policy running at check-in to update Spotify to a new version. But the user has the application running, and they're listening to, I think, Come On Eileen. And it's not the right time because they really want to listen to that, tagline and everything. So they chose to delay the installation. And they got a dialog that says, you can start the install time from self-service. So you have all of those options for you, and the user now has quit self-service, quit Spotify, and launching self-service, and starting the same policy from self-service. And then it just goes ahead and it puts up the dialogues to say that the installation is starting when it's complete. So you can see now that's starting, and then it'll say when it's complete. And then they can return back to Spotify fully updated, and then they can jam out to their next favorite song. And let's see what they're going to choose. It's Guilty Pleasures playlist, too, so it's kind of fun. And I think Call Me Maybe is a really good song. Yeah. I'm not afraid, you know. Thank you. So what can it do? What are the primary functions? So first off, it can quit applications that are running if they need to be quit. If the application is not running, then it doesn't pop up, right? And then it can also build on top of that and block applications from running during a long installation. So it's especially useful for Microsoft Office, the creative applications, and so on. It then also has functionality for logging out the user at the end of the installation. So, there's a couple of use cases where you might need that. And it also can prompt to restart the computer at the end of the installation. And it's all custom branded and try to be very transparent about how to do that. So a little bit more about the delay functionality, and I'll give you a demo after that. It has a built-in delay function that uses its own plist in order to calculate when the right time is and how many times they've chosen to delay it, and then you get to control the limit. So this is the user-chosen delay. Then we have what I call inactivity delay, because let's face it, nobody's at their desk 24/7. The inactivity delay basically keeps the dialog up for 15 minutes, and then it automatically suppresses itself, but it doesn't do the installation because we don't want to be mean and just do it and then restart the computer and be like, hey, whatever, So we keep doing the inactivity delay for 3 times, up to 3 hours, and if they haven't returned back to their computer, then we consume a delay. Their computer would have to be on and awake for this to happen anyway, right? So they should probably shut their lid. Now, the last one is presentation delay, and it's very low-tech, but it basically checks to see if PowerPoint, Keynote, apps like Video Desktop, WebEx Meeting Center, or People and Content IP are running. Those applications, the last ones, tend to actually only be running if the user is actively in some type of meeting. PowerPoint and Keynote, though, we all know lots of people edit PowerPoints for a very long time. And so what we do here is we only delay up to 3 times again. And if it's been longer than 3 hours and they're still in PowerPoint and Keynote, chances are they're just editing a presentation. And so then we pop up. That came because some of our VIP work colleagues were really wanting to stop annoying pop-ups in front of their screen when they were in the middle of some major board thing, and we really wanted to accommodate that, so that's why we built it in. So this is the user-chosen delay option. I'm going to show you the example here. So if you're browsing the Jamf Marketplace, I encourage you to check it out. The user will get software install, and you'll see what happens here. I chose 1 hour.
1 hour later.
So in this one, it's very important to install, so I only put 1 delay option in there, and if you caught it, the second time that it came up an hour later, it only had an OK button. So how do I do this? Well, I follow the philosophy of Bruce. Parameters are friends, not food. A little bit of a spin-off, but I like it. So script parameters are especially useful with Jamf policies, and you can have up to 8 parameters in your script, and that's just fed in from your policy. I'll show you what that looks like when we get into the how to set it up yourself section. So these are all the different parameters that are available to you right now. Still working on more. I want to add tons of more functionality to it. I have a whole list of enhancements that I want to do that are listed on GitHub. And of course, people are welcome to either suggest or contribute to those. So these are some new features that I've recently added that I really wanted to highlight. And so this one shows new functionality to reopen the app after the installation is complete. And you can see I'm run the application install from self-service. And if I quit the application here, and I don't need to save my work, it starts automatically. So the requirements are met, I can go ahead and begin. And then at the end, once it's complete, it'll just reopen itself. And depending on your settings, if you have resume on or quit apps after, close Windows after quitting apps, it will actually save your work as well automatically. In this example, I'm going to go ahead and click Start Now, but I'm going to not save my work, and then it's going to go ahead and also reopen the application. But it prompted beforehand, depending on your settings, to save your work. And then the third example, you'll see it reopen the application. And I'm not exactly writing a novel here or anything, just a quick little demo just to show that I edited the document. And then I reopen or rerun the same policy. And this time I say start now, but I changed my mind and I'm going to cancel it. But I already told it it was okay to quit the application. Well, now I tell the user, hey, please save your work because you approved to restart this. Now, the cool thing is there's actually a go back button there. So if they really needed to change their mind and they were just clicking to go through it, and they still have postpones available, they can actually change their mind still. So that's reopen apps. The next feature I call Smart Restart. And in this example, I'm going to go ahead and start an application installation for a driver for USB Ethernet. And you'll see that I get a dialog box to say that a restart is required. Let me start that. So I've clicked Start Now to start the policy and install this driver. And it requires a restart. And many of us know that when you go into self-service and you see this awesome shop of applications, you click, 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 right? So if you do that and you start another one, like the Wacom tablet drivers, that also may require a restart, especially if you want to make sure that the kex loads, and sometimes it's a good idea to just recommend a restart every once in a while. You'll see that it knows that the user already approved a previous restart, and then it starts it right away. Now, it only does that if there's not other requirements in place. So if you need to quit applications and restart, and those applications are running, well, you need to inform the user that that's going to happen. Or if you need to plug in power and the power is not already connected, then it also will inform the user to plug in power. So that's Smart Restart. And then this last example is Smart Update Detection. So I'm going to install Citrix Workspace over the top of Citrix Receiver, and you need to quit Citrix Receiver in order to install Citrix Workspace because it removes the old one, which is actually really handy. And you'll see that it goes away, and then Citrix Workspace takes its place. And this is just using the native package from Citrix. No customization to the package is required. Now I'm opening up Citrix Workspace manually, and let's say later you just go and update the policy with a new package because there's a new release. With the same policy, I'm running it again, and it automatically detected that Citrix Workspace is installing and that Citrix Workspace is installed, so it changes the dialog to say that it's doing an update instead, which is more informative, more transparent, and will help the user to feel like we trust and that they can trust us and that we're trying to help them with their devices. So that's Smart Update. So now let's talk about how this works. At a high-level structure, it all starts with one main policy, and I call that a recipe. And then from there, that main policy refers to a different policy to instruct the computer to cache the package. Now don't worry, we're going to go into it more in detail from the back end. But I wanted to illustrate here that you make separations in those policies so that you can divvy up the work and you don't overconsume your bandwidth on your AWS server, if your distribution point or whatever. So it only does it if it needs to. And then in the examples I've had a few deployments of the application where I'm using a check-in to update the application to a new version. Now, instead of recreating the recipe, you simply refer back to the main policy, and I'll show you how that works. And then you can do the same thing with a different script for self-service policies. Okay, so now let's dive into the Jamf Pro server. On the Jamf Pro server, I'm creating two policies, the UEX recipe, which I call trigger in this example, and the package caching policy. Might be kind of hard to see here, but the custom event for Spotify, I called Spotify, and the custom event name for the package caching policy is Spotify_cache. And you always just append _cache to the package caching, and then the script knows which policy to run in order to download the package to that device. Then here I have, you can see I'm using the script Jamf interaction no grep, and I have the other policy on the right for package caching, and I set the action to cache, not install, right? Because I want the logic to happen inside the script and not to just run. So let's dive into the parameters of the Jamf interaction no grep. Now I put in no grep in here because there are packages and containing scripts that may kill processes that contain the name of the application. And that would mean that your process running the policy will contain the name of the application, because you can see here that it's fed the parameter of the application name. So I was going to put something in there calling don't grep me bro, but this is a little bit better. So at first, at the top, is the name of the application vendor, application name, and the version. And then I have a spot in here called space required, that in a future update will actually support detecting whether enough space is on the computer to actually perform the installation. So if you start using this, go ahead and just plug in an integer of the amount of gigabytes that you want to have available, and then once we update it, it'll automatically start doing that for you too. Separate everything by semicolons, because that's how I parse everything out. In the next parameter, I have the checks. And the checks are basically the requirements for the installation to occur. And in this case, it's quit. I also put a flag in here saying it's available in self-service. So I've made the decision to publish it in self-service, and I need to inform the UEX script that it's there. And that way they get the nice dialog box telling them to go to your self-service. You also put the install duration as an integer of minutes, and this is really good for those really long installations, so they have a good informed decision on whether or not it's the right time to do that application install or not, or uninstall for that matter, because uninstall is also supported with this function. And then I put the maximum deferral time, the maximum deferral limit, which our default is 3, but you can set that to whatever you like. You could set it to 0. May not be so nice, your users may not like you so much, but if it's a compliance thing, might be a good situation to use it. In the next one is the package name. So the package file name that is caching, I specify it here, and that way, once it's in the waiting room folder that Jamf uses, this script knows what to look for and to start the installation action with the Jamf install command. The cool thing is this actually supports multiple packages. You just simply separate it by semicolons, and then it automatically will do one after another in the order that they're listed here. The trigger name here is a little bit different. The first trigger you specify is the custom event name for the UEX recipe that you're running, right? So that way, when you go, if the application is going to be deferred, then it knows which policy to run once the time is right. You can actually add more custom event policies in here, which will then also run in sequence when the user has chosen to make that possible. And I'll show you a more complex example of how that's used. The last one is a custom message that you can use to provide a little note to the user about that particular policy. Okay, so now on the right is the UEX, is the deployment of that software. So you can scope that to applications, to computers that have the application but not the latest version, or whatever you'd like. That, you could do anything there. But I use a script called deploy via trigger. And you can see all I'm doing is referencing the custom event name for the main recipe. So the package caching and the main recipe have to be scoped to all computers. But because it's only triggered by a custom event, that's OK. Now, on the left is the policy I use for self-service. And in this case, I used the one called update via self-service. There's also a install via self-service and an uninstall via self-service, which just dynamically change the dialog. So if you want to specifically create a policy to uninstall something with UEX, you just use the uninstall via self-service. And again, you reference the custom event name of the recipe. So on the computer, in this example, we saw it a little bit, but I want to just dive into it more. If you run it from Spotify, if you run it from self-service, then you have a start now and a cancel button. Because you have it in self-service, the user can just do it anytime. You don't need to provide a postponement. It also doesn't consume their postponements or their deferrals because you've made it available there. Now, when you run it from there, it pops up and says downloading packages. This tells the user what's going on exactly when they need to know. And then once it's done, it starts the update in this case because we use update. And then when it's complete, it says complete. And then you're good to go. So let's see what it looks like in a deployment to show what the differences are. So in the deployment, you have a drop down to choose intervals of 1 hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, or the next day. And the next day is calculated to 9 a.m. the next day. So if they get in at 8, having coffee, you don't want to be like popping up all over the place. And then if they choose to defer it, because we marked it with the flag self-service available, it says you can start the install anytime. And this also dynamically says start the update. Also, a very fun fact is that if you change the name of your self-service to something else, this will check the plist for the self-service application and dynamically change it to the name of the application that you call your self-service. And also it checks to see where it's located. And it tells you if it's in the applications folder, if it's in the user shared folder for some reason, and it checks to see if it's in the dock. So, how the deferral works. This is kind of fun. It uses an extension attribute. This extension attribute looks inside of the folder where we store the plists. I put them inside of the Jamf folder. I put a folder called UEX. Sorry, Jamf, I'm creeping up on your space there. But the extension attribute simply just says active if there's plists in there. Then I use a smart group that collects all the computers that have active deferrals. And from there, I scope a policy that runs at check-in and at logout. So if they choose to install at logout, that checks to see if enough time has passed or if they've approved an install at logout. And once one of those two parameters are correct, then it runs the UEX policy, the recipe that you specified. Okay, so it'll either pop up again with the interaction requirements, or it may not pop up because there's no requirements needed, and it will start. So I use a combination of Jamf helper, which gives me really good use of just little dialogues to show the time differences. It also calculates very well because it gives me everything in seconds, so I can do math inside of the script. You should definitely check out the Jamf helper help guide if you haven't checked that out before, because there are some really good notes about how you can use it. I also use Coca Dialog. I use a beta release of it since 3.0, I believe, is still not out. I really like the little bubble dialogues that pop up because they're cute. And then I use an application called Please Wait that was created by Eric from MacBrain. And this, I'll show you what it looks like in an example, but it just creates a little progress bar to give the user some semblance of progress on their system and a little bit more information for those really long installations. A little bit more information on this, on the helper agent policies. So I showed you the one main script, Jamf, interaction, no grep. Now, these scripts run as a policy in order to help the user interaction run. Please wait updater updates the progress bar window. UEX deferral service is the one that checks on regular interval. It runs at check-in. Our check-in is 1 hour, but it'll still work if it's 15 minutes for you. And you can't go over 1 hour anyway. So this will do the math and find out if the right time is now. UEX block agent is the one that runs behind the other policy if you need to block applications, and it's simply just a loop, and it knows which applications need to be kept from running during a long installation, and it just quits them. And then it puts up a Cocoa dialog box to say, hey, this installation's still in progress. Please wait, do not open the application. When those installations happen, though, they get a little progress bar as well. It just is a little bit more extra safe to make sure you have a successful deployment of an application. The UEX logout agent is the one that does the math to determine if the user's already logged out after the installation or not, and then if they haven't, it pops up a branded dialog to say, hey, please log out now, and it gets a little countdown as well, just because it encourages our colleagues to log out. Restart agent does the same thing, except for if there's a logout and a restart, then it defaults to restart, right? So you don't over pop up. The inventory update agent is tricky, but it's really fun because instead of putting an inventory update in all of the UEX policies, I determine whether or not an inventory update is required. That waits till all the other policies are done, and if it's the first time a user's deferred a policy, or the user has chosen to install something, or uninstall or update, and something changes about the inventory that you need in your JAMP, then it performs an inventory update. This really saves on mass deployments, because if you do this on a regular basis, this might be running at any given interval, and you could really be hitting your server. We actually had that. The reason why I built this is because I pretty much crashed our JAMP server because of it. So yeah, but now we have inventory update agent, and it works great. So as you can see, there are a plethora of things that you can do with this tool. You can do packages. You can run other scripts as a separate custom event policy. You can do doc items. You can do printers. Really go nuts. It's fun. So I'm going to show you a more complex example now with macOS Mojave. So in this example with Mojave, I put Apple, macOS Mojave, and in the checks I specified macOS upgrade, which changes the dialog to say that a restart will happen automatically after preparation is complete, which is different because technically if you use the start OS install, it's going to restart. And then I specify self-service available, and I specify trigger, which means run more custom events from the parameter 10, which is, you'll see in a second. I specify save all work, which once you start the action, it will then encourage the user to save all of their work. It just simply says that, and they can go back if it's still not a good time, but it's pretty fun. And then I have power. So power also works to check to see if power is connected. It won't start the actions until power is connected. If they have a postpone available, they can go back. And once they plug in power, it starts automatically. I was super excited when I got that working. I was like jumping up and down. It was great. I don't specify a package. I don't specify apps to quit or block here. And I don't specify a package name, but I do put an install duration. And I put 7 days for Mojave because, yes, we like fast adoption, but also it takes a long time. So I want to give the users time and space and to be comfortable with doing that installation. So the recipe trigger is Mojave. So that custom event we specify first, and then you separate it with a semicolon, and you put the second policy that you want to run when the user's chosen to start the action. And for this, I put Mojave_install, and I used a script created by Josh Roscoe's. Super awesome, really grateful for that. And it's just another policy. So once the user's chosen to start it, then it'll run the next action, which is the trigger for Mojave install. And then, of course, I put a custom message in there saying you'll love the new dark mode. So this is what it looks like. It's more wordy. Obviously, it's a more complex installation, but it is very transparent as to what is going to happen on their device. So I say, you'll love the new dark mode. The install may take up about 45 minutes. It checks to see if it's a solid-state drive or a hard disk drive, and it just divides it by 2, because in most cases, it's pretty accurate. I haven't found a better way to do it. That's to change this, but this is how it's done right now. It tells you to connect to a charger, save all your work, and close all apps, and then after the preparation is complete, your computer will restart automatically. So then you can run it at logout, and then, but if I chose to start it, I would get my whatever script or policy would go. So I hope I know what you're thinking now. Where do I get this thing? Well, I put it on GitHub. You can look me up by Cuban Dave. That's my handle on Slack, GitHub, and on Jamf Nation. And I created a channel for UEX on Slack as well, on the Mac admin Slack. So if you have questions or issues in anything like that, you can reach out to us there. And I hope that the community also starts to dive into this as well. We already have several people implementing it. It's really great. So now the fun bit is I get to show you how to set it up yourself on your own Jamf Pro server, and I'm going to do that in 5 minutes or less. Yeah, I know, I got a timer here, I'm watching. So you have to upload the components, the script, main script, the helper scripts, and a package. That package contains please wait application, the icons if you want to use your own custom icons, and it has Cocoa dialog. And then the extension attribute, you also upload that, and you run the setup tool. If you need to update your company name, you simply go to these 4 scripts, and at the very top of these scripts, you can't miss it, it has the title, and that can be your company name. I have your IT company here, because I don't know what else to put. And then you also have the name of, or the file path to the icons that you want to use. But I'm going to show you an even cooler way to do it. Next. Now, branding this tool can be as easy as updating the self-service icon in Jamf Pro. So I got really with this, and I put, I'm referencing the icon where self-service stores the icon. So you see when the first time I ran that, it had the self-service icon because I haven't branded it yet. But I'm going to go to my Jamf Pro server, and I'm going to click on the settings and go to the self-service settings. From those self-service settings, I go to branding, click on edit, and I kind of copy Jamf here because I like the Acme logo, but I don't have a full resolution version of it, so I made my own. And then I click on save. And once I open up self-service, you'll see that once it launches, it checks in with Jamf and updates the icon to whatever branding icon you chose. And that's been super helpful for us. The old way was very, very difficult. You'll see now I have the new icon, and I haven't changed the policy, okay? This is live. Well, it was live when I recorded it. And then the Wacom tablet utility. I'm going to run the same policy, yeah. And you see I have the new icon. This is the please wait helper that I was talking to you about. It's just a continuous bar, but it provides information as to what's going to happen. So it's a restart requirement. So it says a restart will occur after the install is complete. And if you need to block applications, it also informs you about that in there. And then once it's complete, you also get branding up in the bubble dialogues. So it works there. And that's it. That's all we would have to do. So if you make no changes to the paths, it'll work exactly like that. So the custom icons, you can add them to the payload. Just pop them in there and set the permissions, the ownership to root wheel, and you set the permissions to 755. So check out the payload, add whatever you want. You can add more, different icons than your self-service if you want to. To build the package for your UEX, I included a build package script that I stole from SplashBuddy. And you simply just drag the script, you add stuff to your payload, you drag the script into terminal, and then it'll build your package. Okay? And then you upload that to your Jamf server. But don't forget to update the icons in the scripts that I specified earlier. Okay? The path to the icons that you want. So now this is the fun bit. This is setting it up on a Jamf Pro server. So I created an API configuration toolkit, okay? And all you have to do is upload the scripts and run it. And you'll see what I do here. So I created a new company name, Super IT Company. Hopefully that's not copyrighted. And I'm just adding it to those 4 scripts and saving each one. So after you've downloaded it from GitHub, this is all you have to do. Then I take all of the scripts and I upload them to Jamf from Jamf admin. You can also use the web UI, but if you use Jamf admin and replace the existing script, then all of the new features that are there will also update in the same time. I also upload the package, and then I go into Jamf settings and I go to extension attributes. And I saved an XML of the extension attribute so you don't have to write your own. All you have to do is click Upload, choose the XML under the extension attributes folder, you can't miss it, and then click Upload. From there, you click on Save, and there you go. Now, this is really fun. I was so excited when I got this working. So, take the copy of the package name, open up the API configuration tool, and once you open that up, and no, my credentials are not Jamf1234 on my Jamf Pro server, so please don't try to hack me. But update the package name, URL, and the Jamf username and password for your Jamf Pro server. It has to have read and write privileges to packages, policies, smart groups, and all of that. Drop it into terminal, and then click Go, or hit Return. And then this updates the category. This updates each script's parameter values. This updates a smart group and creates all of the policies that you need in order to get your Jamf Pro server running. So when you open up your policies now, you'll see user experience. This was a pretty much vanilla Jamf Pro server before I started this. And now you see I have all of the policies all called out with a custom event name that you need, and you're good to go. Just start making recipes. Okay? And then after that, the world is your burrito. So, thank you very much for your time and attention. Really appreciate it. So, thank you very much for this. Matthew created a short link for me, so it's jamf.it/UEX, and that's how you can find me on GitHub. You can also look me up by Cuban Dave, and yeah, hit me up afterwards, and we still have some time, so I can totally take some questions. Yeah, did I cover it all?
Okay. Hi, Matt from
Hi,
Jamf.
hi, Matt.
Hi. We were chatting a little bit about implementing this with other customers because obviously it's amazing and getting far better every time I see it.
Thank you.
Is it something that could easily be scheduled in a way like you're in a company that has sort of like Patch Tuesday, or we only patch during the last week of the month kind of thing? Like, is there, how would you implement timing it so it's only active during that time of the calendar or that week or something?
Sure. So hypothetically, I've never had to do that because we don't operate that way. But hypothetically, I guess you could make the time restraints on the recipe on the Jamf Pro server. You could set the time restraints there, because then if it's outside of that time, then the trigger won't run.
Sure.
and then the deferral plist would still not hit, so it would still technically be the right time later, and it would continue to run and try later.
Okay.
So that might be one way.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I'd love to see other implementations of maybe some other creative way to do it.
Cool.
Yeah, cool.
All right, now I know what I was going to ask. The Holy Grail would be able to do deferrals that are not set to enforce by a certain date, but by a certain period of time. So in other words, could I possibly set this to start a day, something like that, and then say, give me a week, and by the end of a week, 7 days or 4 days or whatever, do it?
So currently it doesn't support that. It is just limited by the number of times that the user has chosen to defer it.
Okay.
So you set a limit. Now, hypothetically, since the user only has up to 24 hours to defer, if you set the limit to 7, then you have a week.
Perfect.
Yes. And then the other thing, too, is if it's a compliance thing, use the flag compliance. Because I built this on purpose this way, but I did not have it by default run if the users ignored it. Because who knows what the situation might be? I don't know. But if you add the flag compliance to it and you run out of postponements and run out of inactivity delays, so 3 times, then it will start.
Good. You've got me excited. Good job.
Hey, thank you.
How's it going?
Hey, good.
So in my environment, I've got, Jamf pretty much enrolled in all of our machines and whatnot. Haven't gotten to any of this interactiveness with, updates and whatnot.
Yeah.
With this tool, it looks great. Question is, in the age of don't click on this pop-up and don't click on this, was there any communication breakdown or anything like that when users were starting seeing this eventually as far as, doing these maintenance and stuff?
Our users got used to it pretty fast, especially since we use custom branding. And there were times when we did major rollouts such as High Sierra or the Adobe Creative Cloud 2018 that we in the announcements, we show an example of what the dialogue looks like. And that's kind of what we would do there. So, yeah, great question. Thank you.
Hey. This, for me, has a lot of the functionality I wish Patch had. Kind of a more delicate, thoughtful approach to interrupting users' work. Does this replace Patch for you, or do you still utilize that in your environment?
Like patch policies?
Yeah, well, the patch functionality.
Patch management. So, yeah, I haven't fully adopted patch management in our Jamf Pro server. I just use it for patch reporting right now because I've really been looking for something like I saw in the last session. Kenobi was the one. And there's another really good one made on GitHub for a custom patch server as well. So I don't think it replaces it. I think it adds to it. So hypothetically, you could also use these in-patch policies. It's not fully modified for that yet because, like I said, I haven't had to use it in our organization yet, but that is one of my next enhancements that I have on the GitHub page.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Great question. We still have 1 minute. Okay, awesome. Thank you, guys.